All right. Now, folks, capitalism is bad, right? We just talked about how kind of the downfall of a lot of the airline industry, like where it becomes more predatory, right? Is due to the privatization of the industry, right? Like all of the additional fees, the nickel and diming customers, the rollback of experiences, etc. A lot of that can be traced back to the consolidation of the industry. And one thing that we know is that this consolidation is not unique to airlines, of course. It's not unique to really any aspect of capitalism because it is capitalism. The incentive to consolidate is always there, for a couple different reasons, depending on the business, right? But I think this is really kind of exemplified by Walmart. We've talked about this before on the show. Walmart will roll into a small town, they'll open up a Walmart, they will offer better wages so that they are fully staffed, they will price their products lower than the products in the surrounding community, which they can do because of economies of scale, that they have access to that mom and pop operations don't. And they'll slowly, run these mom and pop stores out of business, and that's just kind of how they work. They insert themselves and they become kind of the go-to place, right? And these they will cut it at a loss too, in a way that mom and pop stores can't, because again, they're backed by the infinite coffers of Walmart itself, so they can afford for a prolonged period of time to undercut their competition. And this has actually a name. The process of kind of hollowing out these small town communities via the insertion of Walmart, like some kind of virus, right? It's called the Walmart effect. They've written books about it. Economists have written books about it. There have been government reports done on it. And guess what? It turns out that the United States House of Representatives in 2013 commissioned the low wage drag on our a study, the low wage drag on our economy, Walmart's low wages and their effect on taxpayers and economic growth. And basically, what they found in this study is that Walmart was a net negative on the quality of life in these small town Americas. Wages were depressed. It just wound up killing the economic activity in a lot of these small towns. It's pretty shocking, you know. Let me see if I can find the chart in this paper that I'm looking for. Oh yes, basically this paper found that essentially, yeah. Recommendations: increasing wages at Walmart and across the nation's large retail sector should have a significant impact on two interrelated fronts: economic growth and deficit reduction. And this finding, by the way, is the number one recommendation here: increasing wages at Walmart and across the nation's large retail sector. The reason that finding was made was because Walmart systematically, after it drives out its competition, lowers the wages. They lower the wages, or they pay employees so little that they qualify for government benefits and don't qualify for any benefits through the company. They will deny hours. They will choke out their workers, keep them desperate. It's why those asshats from Chicago who tried to force a Walmart into Southside Chicago is a shit show and ended up causing a food desert when they fucked off. Well, yeah. And that's the other thing. The community becomes completely dependent on whatever Walmart tends to stock. Now, you might be like, oh, well, they can just go to another town. Well, yeah, but what if your town's like, what if the next town over is like 30 minutes away? You know, suddenly you have to spend an hour of your day just commuting to and from the closest like general goods store, right? And we can go over this report, and we probably should sometime, just to give you guys like a background. But we're not going to do that right now. Well, yeah. What if you don't have? Well, that's the thing, Salmon Moose. If you live in rural, small town America, if you don't have a car, you're fucked. Like that. That's just kind of it. You ride a bicycle. You know, you ride a bicycle for 2 hours to get anywhere. If you don't have a car in rural America, you are dunzo. Where my mom lives, she has to drive an hour to go to the grocery store. Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, America doesn't understand how to do public transport either. Well, that's the thing. We can do public transport if you're in the city. If you're outside of the city, you are out of fucking luck. You are not going to be able to go anywhere without a car. We have a public bus to the city. Yep. In America, absolutely not a thing. But this is not unique to Walmart, right? Because we have other industries that are currently operating in a very similar way. And a very prominent one is Uber. Uber has been operating at a deficit, a massive, massive deficit, just a money sinkhole for years now. And the reason it operates at this massive deficit, at a loss, is because investors keep throwing their money at it, because there is this idea, right, in the back of their skulls. All they need to do is run the taxi services out of business. That's all they need to do. And they can do that by just backing Uber until that happens. And when the taxis are gone, when the lobbying against public transit is successful, well, then they can raise their fares. Then they can start operating at a profit by fucking over their workers more. You know, even with Uber drivers not being considered full employees, they still operate at a loss, you know? And it's very interesting. The VCs are still getting huge chunks of cash. Oh yeah, no, like 100%. The venture capitalists are just throwing money at Uber and DoorDash and the like. But like, the goal here is to destroy the previous stuff and consolidate the services that were operated under a single company, under Uber in this case, you know? I lived in an experimental 15-minute city called Newton. It's an absolute game changer. Nothing but small businesses. No wonder the GOP hates them. They're fantastic. This is a phenomenon that's happening more and more, is kind of what I'm getting at. These companies are predatory because they are operating to continue maximizing profits at every available opportunity, which means, you know, coming up with bullshit fees for airlines that you can't really avoid, coming up with a way to run out all of your competition out of business, you know, get them out of there. And this is not unique at all. And now I want to talk real quick about essentially Dollar General, okay? Dollar stores are kind of the final form of this model, right? They go into areas and they are able to operate they're able to operate in the same way a Walmart would, but in like smaller economic settings. Yeah, Dollar General, Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, etc. They go in with a small set of products that they offer for $1, often either inferior products or like a lesser quantity of product that like is at a worse deal. But it's cheaper and more accessible to people, so they're able to get, instead of being able to get like, a fifth of your paycheck, they're able to take the pocket change, essentially the cash money of people who are struggling. Like it might be difficult if you are struggling and in poverty to go to Walmart, because it takes a lot of money to buy a lot of that stuff. A whole jug of like orange juice can be pretty expensive at Walmart. A little bit less expensive at the dollar store. I mean, you don't get as much, and technically you can get like twice as much orange juice for, less per ounce or whatever at Walmart. But that doesn't matter if you don't have the money to buy the big jug of juice. So this winds up being something that nestles into low-income communities, and it's the company that is now nickel and diming poverty-stricken areas of the country in order to fulfill, like, the food desert needs of a certain group of people. Or even like, oh, well, Walmart wouldn't consider it profitable to open up in your city. It's so, like, it's so small. But you know what can? Dollar General can. So it's basically the cannibalizing of the parts of society that Walmart is too big to go into. Screwing low-income people is as old as capitalism. Exactly, Circuit Overlord. Exactly. And yeah, they're horrible to their workers too. But it's the same issue as Walmart, right? Like, their entire plan is to provide not enough benefits so that the state government steps in and picks up the slack and makes sure that these people don't starve to death. But again, they're never doing too well that they can just quit their job at Dollar General or quit their job at Walmart. That would be unhelpful to their goal of making billions of dollars. So to this end, we have this video here, how dollar stores quietly consumed America. And don't worry, I did say at the beginning of this that we would get to talking about unity. We'll get there. I promise. Here we go.
To a certain slightly uninformed expert, this Dollar General in Faith, South Dakota would seem an economic impossibility disproven only by its existence. Faith is a tiny place, a remote, no-stoplight prairie town of 367. It's got a couple of gas stations and a couple of inns and restaurants and an auto parts store, but what it doesn't have is a single nationwide brand. It doesn't have a single branch of any store, restaurant, or service that exists beyond the region around, except for Dollar General. But that doesn't explain the full extent of the anomaly, because Dollar General isn't just the only chain in Faith, it's the only chain in a 45-minute radius until one arrives at this Dairy Queen in the far larger 3,000-person tribal capital of Eagle Butte. A 367-person population just isn't typically enough to attract a nationwide brand. There's just not enough money in the area to make capturing it attractive, and yet somehow, Dollar General makes it work. While perhaps an extreme example, there's no secret about Faith. It's not some tourist mecca, it's not an interstate oasis, it does sit at the intersection between a state and US highway, but it's not on the fastest route between any two cities, so this store, somehow, is sustained by the tiny community that surrounds it. This is anomalous in the context of national retailers, but not in the context of Dollar General. They're consistently persistent in places simply too small for other chains.
Right. So this is backing up what I'm saying here, right? Like, this is the cannibalization of the parts of America that are too poor for Walmart. It's a food desert. It is not profitable unless you are operating a small number of products at economies of scale that make it profitable for you to supply cheap goods to the middle of nowhere, right? Um this is Walmart scaled down to, target with laser precision these deserts and suck up whatever money is going on here. Because another thing you guys have to keep in mind, right, is that when Dollar General is taking the money from these people, same with Walmart, by the way, same with a lot of these national chains, the money doesn't then get circulated in the community, really, because again, they're paying their employees so little that they're usually on state benefits. So that money isn't getting circulated in the community, it's getting pulled out to sit in the bank accounts of wealthy assholes. It is a siphon to pull out every last drop of wealth until there's nothing left in the community.
Its next nearest location to the north is in a town of 1,200, to the east 1,100, and to the south and west 540 and 590 respectively. Walmart is also one of the most regular retailers in rural America, but they don't even come close to these numbers. There's no way to know for sure which are their lowest traffic stores, and therefore what the minimum population that can support their economics is, but by letting the quantity of Google reviews act as an imperfect proxy, their location in Gunnison emerges as Colorado's least popular location. 6,700 live within a 20-minute driving radius of this store, but revenue is likely buoyed by its positioning at the start of the dead-end highway up to the tourist town of Crested Butte. Similarly, Wyoming's least popular Walmart is its outpost in Rawlins, with a 6,300 person population within the same radius, but once again, its revenue is likely boosted by its location along Interstate 80.
Well, yeah, no, like Walmart's also, when they make themselves kind of the lifeblood of community, then they shut down because it's not it's not profitable enough to keep them open. Well, then it just fucks up the entire city, which is again very much like when the factory towns started pulling factories out and sending them overseas, right? When the company towns started falling apart because everyone in the town would work at the factory or would work at the the mill, and well, if those jobs get moved elsewhere, then the entire town of people that currently live there is fucked. And that's what happens with Walmart too. It's kind of the scaled down version of the factory town having to die. We have countless examples of these dried out husks where several hundred or several thousand people live, and they're still just dead and dying, and Walmart is kind of picking over their corpses. And soon they'll be too small, and then Dollar General will move in to pick over the half-eaten corpse. It's how capitalism cannibalizes itself.
So perhaps the best evidence of the minimum population to support the retailer's economics comes from Alaska, where its least popular store sits on the island of Kodiak. 8,700 people live within a 20-minute radius, and there's clearly no interstate traffic coming through. Walmart revolutionized retail through its ability to turn a profit in small, remote communities like Kodiak. Its impact decimated the American Main Street, but Dollar General has taken that to a new extreme. Where Walmart entrenches itself in the thousands, Dollar General deals in the hundreds. This revolutionary retail concept starts on the inside. Total staff headcount at a given location typically sits between 6 and 10, and of those, just 2 or 3 might work at a given time. Given typical hourly rates and typical opening hours, that means Dollar General can spend as little as $300 to $400 a day staffing their lowest traffic stores. Then there's product offering complexity. A Walmart averages 140,000 unique products. They'll sell Coke in 10-count mini cans, 30-count mini cans, 12-count full-size cans, 24-count full-size cans, 12-count mini bottles, 6-count full-size bottles, 12-count full-size bottles, 1-count 2-liter bottles, 4-count 4-liter bottles, and then they'll offer all these sizes for Diet Coke, Coke Zero, Cherry Coke, and then they'll offer this same spread for every other soda brand and its variants, which is incredibly convenient. They have the exact soda, variant, bottle size, type, and quantity that any given person wants, but the permutations really add up. More individual products require a more complex supply chain, more floor space, and added staffing dedicated to organization, which adds to cost for the retailer. Dollar General, meanwhile, keeps it simple. They offer just 10,000 unique products, but they do this primarily not by reducing how many product categories they sell, but rather the optionality within each category.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They narrow down how many things that they're ordering for the Dollar General, but still continue to produce those at economies of scale that allow them to produce them for dirt cheap. Yeah.
In a way, they're trying to be a mini Walmart, offering a one-stop shop experience as long as you're willing to compromise on brand, size, quality, or quantity of a given product. So whereas Walmart has a pan or toilet paper or detergent aisle, Dollar General has a pan, a toilet paper, or a detergent. Now, Walmart is likely able to purchase Tide detergent from Procter & Gamble for a fairly low price because it's the largest retailer in the world and therefore has very strong negotiating power. If it were to stop stocking Tide, P&G's revenues would take an enormous hit. But correspondingly, given the popularity of Tide, Walmart could take a hit if consumers decided to go to Target to buy the brand instead. Dollar General, meanwhile, has that same enormous negotiating power with their same enormous size, but crucially, they don't have to stock everything. Walmart's competitive advantage is that they're the definitive one-stop shop. They combine the local supermarket, hardware, electronics, home goods, and clothing stores into one. Dollar General's competitive advantage is that they're the shop. They are the only game in town, and so they just need to offer one brand of laundry detergent, and that's the detergent people will get. This bestows enormous negotiating leverage. Manufacturers will bend to their whims in order to become the Dollar General detergent supplier, meaning they might be able to get a similar or even better deal from P&G on detergent pricing than even Walmart. That's what leads to products like this, Dollar General's $1 Tide brand detergent. To balance the retailer's need for a low-cost offering.
So just to be clear, like places like Dollar General have such large negotiating power because they have been able to insert themselves into this economic niche that they are able to get their own brand, not their own brand, but their own, like, they're able to negotiate their own product that is unique to their like dollar store model. That is actually pretty shocking because you have to take into account like their other companies are putting their resources into branding those, into manufacturing those. Entirely new product. That's a lot of work. Yeah, they get their own offerings. And they get this powerful by leveraging the economies of small towns.
With their desire to maintain a premium name brand image, Procter & Gamble has gone out of their way to manufacture a $1 Tide detergent bottle. Now, Walmart actually sells this same product for less. Their 128 fluid ounce size works out to under 12 cents per load, almost half of Dollar General's 20 cents per, but Dollar General's target consumer is one who is severely cash strapped. They cater to the class of consumers that might want to spend $10 on bulk detergent that will last for months, but chooses the $1 option regardless to keep enough cash on hand to pay rent before their next payday.
Yeah, like again, this is for, yeah, they are preying and marketing their services to people who have nowhere else to go because they are too strapped for cash to afford $10 for detergent, you know? It's the Boots theory of economics. Exactly, Salmon Moose. It's the Boots theory. That is a great observation. It's the Boots theory of economics, just reversed and used as like, this is how you should organize your economy. Here, I'll just pull this. I'll just pull this up. We Yeah. I just want the actual quote. Ah, here we go. I think I found it. Yes. Again, this comes from Terry Pratchett's Discworld books. Sam Vimes' Boots' Theory of Socioeconomic Unfairness. And I believe in the story, Vimes is the name of a guardsman who like solves fantasy crimes. But anyway, I'll read this for you guys. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50. But an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kinds of boots Vimes always bought, and wore until the soles were so thin he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have to spend $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. Yeah, from the Men-at-Arms book by Terry Pratchett. What we are seeing here is that, you know, by the time you get through this $1, or yeah, by the time someone who had $10 would get through this, the person who had to pay $1 for this smaller bottle of Tide many times over would have spent, you know, $20, right? Essentially, the people who are too poor to buy the $10 of Tide wind up paying $20 for the same amount of Tide. And it's just that Dollar General saw this and was like, yes, that is that is our business model, actually. that is our business model. Our business model is just fucking over poor people.
So Dollar General actually charges more per load, and even better, their consumer will want to come back sooner than Walmart's to buy a refill, at which time they'll also buy whatever else they need, therefore extracting more revenue.
Exactly. That's another really good point here, which is that customers, when they need to get that another small bottle of Tide, have to go to the store many, many, many more times, which means the store has many, many, many more opportunities to sell you other stuff.
But Dollar General's true strategic linchpin is the most anomalous aspect of its business model: its remote locations. The retailer has turned what would be a weakness for others into the core of its strength. It starts with cost. Rent at this store in North Creek, New York is $118,000 a year, at this store in Sullivan, Maine, $103,000 a year, and at that Faith, South Dakota location, $106,000 a year. That works out to between $300 and $400 in rent per day, which, added to their $300 or $400 in daily staffing costs, underpins Dollar General's ability to run a store with under $1,000 of overhead per day. In general, they just won't set up a location in a place where they'll have to pay over $150,000 or so in annual rent. It just breaks their low-cost business model. But low rent costs are far from the key that unlocks rural America. Rather, remoteness itself enables their remoteness. Take their location in Haven, Kansas. This is a town of 1,170 that simply does not have a grocery store. They have a gas station and a liquor store and a coffee shop and diner, but they don't have a grocery store. Dollar General is not a grocery store, but their locations do stock shelf-stable dry goods and frozen food, and some sell a limited supply of perishables. The closest dedicated grocery store is a full 10-minute drive away in the next town, and it's small, not one that could necessarily fulfill all of a person's needs. The closest supermarket is a full 22 minutes away in the city of Hutchinson, so what happens in practice when Dollar General enters a market like Haven is that rather than making that 10 or 22-minute trip, people shop out of the local Dollar General for regular day-to-day needs, then make less frequent trips to the distant grocery store for fresh and specialty items. But increasingly, this pattern isn't confined to Dollar General, and it isn't confined to rural America either. This is Atlanta, Georgia, and the surrounding cities, suburbs, and communities that comprise much of the broader Atlanta metro area. This is a map of their most common grocery stores: Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Lidl, Publix, Kroger, and Walmart. They all do the same thing. They all trend north and east. But people live here too, and they too need food to eat and stores to buy food to eat. For anyone, this would make grocery shopping more of a pain than it already is. Making things more difficult though, this gap of grocery stores is also home to the metro area's least mobile, as these census tracts contain, in the words of the USDA's Food Access Atlas, more than 100 households with no access to a vehicle and are more than a half mile from the nearest supermarket.
Yeah, so basically, Dollar General is like, we can actually milk more money out of these people than high density trafficked areas because they have no other options and they're too poor for better alternatives. It's actually really insidious.
Unsurprisingly, this correlates closely with tracts that are low income, as all these areas have a poverty rate of over 20% or a median family income of less than 80% of the median income for the state or metro area. Put together, Atlanta residents with the least money and least mobility are the farthest from supermarkets. Now, of course, it's not a simple coincidence that some of the poorest and least mobile populations of Atlanta are farthest from supermarkets. These, after all, are areas still grappling with the legacy of redlining in the past, and areas that some academics have identified as current instances of supermarket redlining. The process by which businesses intentionally keep their distance from such areas for reasons that vary from crime rate and purchasing power to zoning restrictions and unfavorable street layouts. But regardless of their reasons, supermarkets simply don't exist in a large portion of the Atlanta metro area, creating an urban food desert. This is a void that dollar stores have stepped into. Unlike Atlanta supermarkets, dollar stores trend south and west, largely the areas left behind. And they provide an important service. They provide foodstuffs and basic home supplies at a low price point within walking distance or—
But by the way, if you wonder why nutrition in America is so bad, if you wonder why a lot of this is so bad and exacerbated, a lot of it is because the food available at these dollar stores is not high quality food, because they want to make sure that the stuff that they're selling is as profitable for them as possible, so they stock the cheapest stuff. You know, there are a ton of Family Dollars and Dollar Generals in my part of the city, i.e. poor and black, live in Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah, again, like, and it does tend to be aligned on racial grounds, largely because of the, you know, histories of redlining and stuff. And like this, the economy that we've created and the economy that is being used to exploit people in these areas is coming with a whole host of health consequences and a whole host of, like, frankly, I think situations that reveal the hollowness and failure of America. You know, it is the failure of America, and there are a lot of them, right? There are a lot of them, but one of the ones that is currently active so much right now is the failure to rein in capitalism. Because it should not be that the solution to these areas is just give them worse food and you know, siphon the money out of poor people's pockets. Like that money gets hoovered up to pay for, like, yachts and, like, jetpacks and crazy rich people shit. And it's done at the cost of, like, worsening lives.
or a manageable bus trip. This has happened in Atlanta, it's happened in Dallas, it's happened in New Orleans, and it's happened in a host of other major and minor American cities from Tulsa to Dayton. And in most of these urban cases, dollar stores effectively plug a hole that desperately needs to be plugged. It's for this reason that after some teenagers burned down a dollar,
I mean, like, and then we have to ask ourselves, well, why does that hole desperately need to be plugged? Don't make jokes. Like, the reason is the hyper consolidation of groceries, right? Like it simply became a situation where grocery stores were getting bought up and consolidated under these giant corporate conglomerates, much like the airlines, much like what Walmart does to these small towns, absorbing all of the business from the local mom and pop stores. The local mom and pop grocers getting run out of business, you know? And the death of butchers and grocers. And the small grocery stores that kept these places stocked with good food, well, they got pushed under. They got pushed under by economies of scale that they had no hope of competing against. Yeah, exactly. You have to drive a ways to go to Kroger or Walmart, and that's if you have a car. And like that's the other thing, right? Like there aren't grocery stores available to like poor folks who are struggling to get by, and instead they now have dollar stores that are, you know, taking the last nickel and dime out of people's pockets.
in the city of Dayton in 2017, the community pleaded for it to be reopened. It's for this reason that the former New Orleans mayor celebrated the proliferation of dollar stores as the return of business investment in the city's East End post-Katrina. But plugging a hole is not solving a problem. It's just an imperfect temporary fix, not one meant to last. That's because the impact of a dollar store in a food desert isn't neutral to the health of a community. It's outright negative.
Oh, you mean the company that's coming to nickel and dime poor people, poor working folk? The company that's out to do that is not having positive health outcomes for the local community? I'm shocked.
Most American food deserts aren't so different from, of all places, Haven, Kansas. They have a dollar store. And they have, or until recently had, at least one grocery store that carries shelf-stable foods, along with fresh produce and refrigerated meats and dairy
Beluga
products.
for real.
The products that are lower margin for the business, but lead to a more nutritious and diverse diet. Such stores have been harder and harder to come by, but many of America's tiniest towns have, against all odds, resisted the massive Albertsons and Kroger-fueled grocery industry consolidation. Too small to be attractive for the supermarket chains, and are home to some of the country's last independent grocers, right-sized to fit the communities they serve, barely hanging on as the brutal economics of America's monopolistic food supply system push them over the edge. But their perilous economics become all but impossible with the arrival of a neighboring dollar store. In Haven, Kansas, this store was Food Lion, which, after the opening of the Dollar General, saw its customer visits drop by nearly half, and after 3 years, saw its doors close for good. For any grocery store, it's typical for sales to drop by up to 30% when a dollar store is open nearby, as consumers head for canned soup, Frosted Flakes, Pop-Tarts, and the countless other shelf staples that are just a bit cheaper and a bit more convenient. This kills the grocery store that counts on such sales to justify carrying fresh produce, pushing them out of business. This, in turn, makes it more difficult to buy healthy, nutritious food, destroying the food desert's oasis, and putting people of modest means and mobility at a nutritional disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, which are you gonna do? Are you gonna go to the Dollar General to get, like, your staples? Or are you gonna go to, you know, the place that's, like, 40 minutes away and round trip is gonna take you at least 3 hours? Are you gonna go to that one? Most people won't.
And the impact of dollar stores on communities is broader than just what people eat. In early 2019, the Dayton Daily News reported on plans for a new Dollar General on the east side of town. It'd be taking the place of a now closed grocery store, and it'd be the 70th dollar store within a 10-mile radius of downtown Dayton, Ohio.
Jesus Christ. The 70th store within 10 miles of downtown Dayton. Oh, God. Oh, again, they're like leeches. They're like little ticks. Just siphoning off the wealth of the poorest people in the country.
Like Atlanta, Dayton's dollar stores map closely along its most disadvantaged and downtrodden areas. Where their density is the highest is where poverty rates are the highest, and where their footprint is nearly zero is the suburban communities of Kettering and Beaver Creek, where household incomes are higher and grocery stores far more prevalent. At the end of 2019, local news reported that there were 28 separate dollar store robberies in the Dayton area, down from the high water mark of 32 in 2017, but up from 24 in 2018. Effectively, dollar stores here have become a hotbed for crime. Now, in the case of Dayton, it's not that dollar stores are to be blamed for the area's crime rate, but rather that the design of the stores make them easy targets. Principally, these businesses deal in cash, as not until 2004 did Dollar General even take credit cards, making them ideal for a criminal of any level of experience. Beyond cash, overflowing trash outside, cluttered...
I mean, like, LB, this is not to, like, shame anyone who's going to a Dollar General. It's just to point out the reality that, like, they present a societal issue, right? Like, I'm sure each individual going to a Dollar General generally is getting the thing that they want, right? But the existence of them is like this societal and economic issue that there really isn't a way to fix right now, because we've fucked the system, and so we need to figure out how to unfuck it, which is a much harder question, you know?
Aisles inside, full window advertisements, light staffing, and outdated, poorly placed cameras, all hallmarks of dollar stores, both attract opportunistic burglary and make it difficult for police to safely navigate once they arrive on scene. In Dayton, the problem got to a point where the police received an average of nearly...
Dollar General is the product of poverty, not the cause? Well, I would argue it is both a product and now a cause of poverty. Like, it's another chain in the causality, you know?
1,000 calls to respond to dollar stores every year. In response, the police began to proactively work with Family Dollar employees to establish policies and management.
It's almost like, I know it might sound crazy, you know, we keep looking back and it's like, oh, it's almost like the system of capitalism is bad. It's almost like that. Really makes you almost wonder.
Practices, from upkeep to more frequent cash transfers, that would reduce vulnerability. But the training just didn't take, as employees turned over so frequently and cared so little about their near minimum wage employer that they simply couldn't be bothered.
Oh yeah, like what? Oh yeah, you're gonna stop the guy stealing from a Dollar General. You're gonna put your life on the line for $10 goddamn an hour.
Such high resignation, in both senses of the word, point to another long-standing issue only exacerbated by the arrival of dollar stores.
Environmental Frog, thank you for the raid.
Along with further drying out
Welcome,
food
Raiders.
deserts and tempting crime, dollar stores provide areas with only a few meager jobs. The lean labor model may work for dollar stores' profitability, but it doesn't do much for the surrounding community. To keep labor costs low, a dollar store will only employ 6 to 10 people, and they'll only be paid around minimum wage. Dollar General, for instance, pays 92% of its employees under $15 an hour. By themselves, these numbers are bad, but they get worse once considering the grocery store that it might have replaced.
Yeah, like 92% of its workforce is being paid less than the $15 minimum wage. Like, yeah, of course they're not going to put their lives on the line to stop theft. And B, like, what better example of wealth not being kept in these communities? They're paid less than $15 an hour, and then the money that is being taken from the pockets of the impoverished in the area just gets siphoned away into a billionaire's bank account. Like, that's That's all that happens here. Like, it's just a money extraction machine.
Placed. That independent grocer provides around 20 jobs. The dollar store, less than 10.
Yeah, like, small mom and pop stores can be great. Imagine an entire country where the predominant economic mode of, mode of capital ownership was democratic as opposed to capitalistic. Wouldn't it be great to have more democracy in the workplace? To have grocery stores that have 20 employees that all cooperatively own the store? I think that'd be great. I think that would be great. But unfortunately, there are people in our society who think that because they were born into positions of privilege, they deserve to simply just own people and their labor. And Godspeed, Gamer G. Godspeed and God bless.
Independent grocers' profits stay circulating within the local economy. Dollar store profits are whisked away to faraway investors.
If you're for real, 15 out. Yeah, no. And again, Uhuru Warrior, you're relatively new, so you don't know. I for years have been advocating for a $30 minimum wage. Like, one of my earliest things was saying, hey, the minimum wage should really be $30. And I think that was like 4 years ago. And people were like, oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. A $30 minimum wage? That's insane. But like, we asked for a $15 minimum wage like 10 years ago. We've been asking for it the entire goddamn time, and nothing has happened, and now $15 is worth way less than it was 10 years ago. And the rents just keep going up. But like, if they aren't even paying $15 an hour. There's no way. There's no living wage here, but like, they can't even meet that bar.
Investors. With food crime
Yeah, honestly, at the rate things are going, we'll need a $50 minimum wage.
And jobs, dollar stores aren't the root of a problem that impacts low-income communities, nor are they the answer. They're a creative response to problems that take advantage of problems and then exacerbate those problems. But perhaps the most foolproof evidence to articulate that dollar stores are just plain bad for rural and urban America alike is the fact that the communities themselves are pushing back against their advance.
Base.
In response to the lack of pay and the danger inherent in working at Dollar General, employees in 2023 protested around the company's headquarters in Goodlettsville, Tennessee for better working conditions. In 2018, the city of Tulsa passed an ordinance to limit new dollar stores and instead encourage full-service grocery stores. In the move's wake, 75 communities have blocked dollar store proposals, and 54 cities have enacted limits on dollar store development. Of course,
I mean, limits aren't bans, but I'll take what we can get.
these numbers are minor in comparison to the tens of thousands of dollar stores now spread across the US, but each case of grassroots pushback serves as a powerful rebuttal. That these communities, now marked by the neon signs signaling that the rest of the world has largely forgotten about them, are a problem, and enough of a problem to bring communities together to fight back. Fundamentally, Dollar General and its close equivalents are simply following the economic path of least resistance.
Almost like it's a systemic issue that we need to fix, like a problem with the system. And the system is capitalism. It's almost like capitalism has a problem that we need to fix, or might just be inherent to the system that we can't fix, because any fixes we apply will simply be undermined by capitalists. It's almost like we need a more democratic economic system. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here.
They're outcompeting local businesses, and they're doing it fairly. But that path of least resistance leaves a trail of destruction that disadvantages individuals. That's because individuals' best interests can work against their best interests. People prefer having a dollar store and a grocery store and shopping at both, but in the process of doing what they prefer in the short term, they destroy that grocery store and create a scenario that is less desirable for themselves in the long term. So that's what government is for. It's an assembly of individuals into a collective that can solve these strange mismatches between two sets of best interests. The American Main Street is a fragile environment. It's already taken a beating as big box retailers built up across the country, but that battle was fought from a distance. The one thing Walmart couldn't compete with was the locational convenience of small town stores for small towns. Dollar General can, and it is. It's got a simple yet unbeatable business model. It's a black hole that sucks up variety and vitality and litters the American landscape with these perfectly destructive beige boxes.
That was a really good video from Wendover Productions. And it has 2 million views. How about that? Look at people being interested in infrastructure and shit. Good job, folks. So, yeah, a lot of this is interrelated. You can see how the issues of consolidation, the issues of like the predatory business practices that are just undermining the entire system in the pursuit of finding these small instances of monopoly in given areas, right? You can see how this is all kind of coming together here. Something that's really interesting is just that currently the National Labor Relations Board is going really hard on Amazon and Google. So basically, today, right? US versus Google, all the news from the search antitrust showdown. So, for those of you who don't know, the United States has been pursuing this antitrust action against Google for the way that Google has essentially monopolized search engines. You know? Which is very, very interesting. But it's not all that's going on right now. Amazon had a last chance meeting with the FTC, and those talks broke down. And you know what's happening now? The FTC is considering also bringing antitrust lawsuits against Amazon. Just real quick.
FTC's next move is Cathy O'Neill, former Senior Director of Investigations and Litigation, the Department of Justice's Antitrust Division. Cathy, good morning to you. We've read a lot about where...
I don't know how they got Nathan Felder to be like a host on CNBC, but good job.
The FTC is going with Amazon next. Specifically, it appears to be around third-party sellers and how it's using the platform. What do you make of the case, given what we think we know at this point?
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, listen, I think this is very interesting. It's a long anticipated case. Lina Khan has strong views about Amazon. It's part of the reason that she got her job. I think the thing that makes this case interesting is that, and that would frankly make an FTC challenge difficult, is the fact that so many people have come to love and rely on Amazon, and in particular Amazon Prime, right? The unlimited fast and free shipping, the access to books and music and movies. Over the past 5 to 10 years, I think consumers have really grown to expect and rely on these services. I know, for myself.
I mean, I'd be okay with a little bit more expensive shipping if it meant the company got broken up and workers were treated more ethically and it wasn't doing as much bad shit.
I consider it nothing short of a small miracle that I can order something in the morning and it's on my doorstep by the next day or sometimes even the same day. So I think...
Same, Cathy, I'm with you.
Yeah, so when you think about an enforcement action that has the potential to jeopardize that, I think some people get nervous. Certainly, in any court case, Amazon is going to be able to point to these consumer benefits in defense of some of its actions.
So that's the fundamental question, I think, both for the company, for investors, possibly for consumers, which is to say, do you think this is a strong case? And
I mean, if you broke down the companies, it might still be able to do that depending on how you break them down. But B, maybe it's okay that you have to wait like a day to get your knick-knack that you ordered last minute. Maybe it's okay if it actually takes like a day for something to arrive, as opposed to a handful of hours.
Should the FTC be bringing the case?
It's a good question, and I should say I haven't seen the record yet. I'm very anxious to see what the FTC has been able to put together here. I think, riffing on the themes I just mentioned, I think these sorts of cases are difficult, right? I think both antitrust law and consumers look favorably on things like lower prices, innovative offerings like the Amazon Prime offering, big capital investments such as the investment that Amazon has made to establish its logistics and delivery service that we've all come to rely on. So these things are generally looked at favorably under the antitrust laws. But as I understand it, these are the very things that appear to be the focus of the FTC's concern. So, for example, purportedly the FTC is concerned that Amazon is using all the goodies that are offered as part of that Amazon Prime membership to cement its position and crowd out competitors.
Right.
Yeah, again, this is 100% what it's been doing. Guys, Amazon is not a particularly profitable company. It makes a lot of revenue, but it's not a particularly profitable company. But what it's been doing the entire time has been the same thing that Uber's doing, which is just having investment money come in so that they can essentially set themselves up as the one and only marketplace, where they can prioritize selling their products and deprioritize competitors' products. That's the entire point, because then they can leverage the incalculable amounts of economies of scale they have going on to outcompete places like Walmart. AWS makes money hand over fist, but like the shipping stuff, it doesn't. That doesn't make them money. It doesn't make them money to just send you a product in like 3 hours. That doesn't make them money. But what does make them money is by having you go to their store and you need plastic bags. Well, guess what? They got slightly cheaper plastic bags than the normal brand, and they work just as well. Well, and guess what? Now you're suddenly buying a bunch of Amazon products that you wouldn't have otherwise. And hey, they can compete out other companies. And those other companies just kind of have to suck it. They pretty much already pulled that off in the book market. Exactly, Mule Bob. And they're not just doing it like Uber is against like taxi drivers. Amazon's doing it for everything. They're doing it for everything. Every product. Every good. They want to be the everything market. And honestly, they're not that far away from doing it. So, what I'm trying to say here is that, yeah, their entire business model is to subvert their competition, which is not surprising because that's how capitalism works. The entire thing is motivated by the desire to get ever more profit, which you can do most effectively by creating a monopoly, which is how the market forces tend to consolidate. So it's not surprising that this is exactly what Amazon's doing, because it's what every company is doing once they get large enough.
They appear to also be concerned about Amazon's pricing parity provisions, which essentially require merchants that do business with Amazon to offer them the best price. And finally, there's purportedly some concern that Amazon is steering merchants to use its logistics and fulfillment services, which of course is the very delivery service that gets us all the same day and next day packages that.
Oh my God, how much money did they pay this lady? How much? What is that, a package of influencer money behind her? Like, oh my God, dude. This is a 4-minute long clip, and she's been talking about how great Amazon delivery is for 3 minutes.
That we've grown to rely on. So, it's not to say that the FTC can't make out a case on these facts. And I know that there is some consumer concern about Amazon, but it's the sort of case that I think a court could struggle with given the obvious consumer benefits.
Well, let's just say for a moment, let's stipulate, Kathy. Let's just say that
is this just like one of Amazon's lawyers? Amazon's just so It's just so satisfying. Every time I use it, I feel like I'm orgasming thrice.
They do all these things. Let's say they do everything that you just said. The question that I have is, does the FTC first have to effectively prove that that Amazon has a sort of remarkable market dominance or power in the business to begin with, before it even gets to the idea that these things might not be beneficial to, frankly, the third parties or maybe consumers?
Yeah, I think all of these claims would need to be predicated on the notion that Amazon is differently positioned, that it has market power that it's wielding. In the abstract, the idea of lower prices and innovation and big
In the abstract, I mean, I would never object to lower prices and more innovation.
capital investments, these are all things that I think are viewed as very pro-consumer. So it would be the idea that
Bezos definitely owns Washington Post. I'm not sure about Huffington.
Amazon has amassed market power and is using that to cement its position, to maintain a monopoly position, perhaps.
Goodness. Wow. I just wanted like decent small analysis bit about the pending Amazon antitrust suit, but we got literally none of that from the knowledgeable lawyer they had on. I will say though that it's very interesting. We are expected to see that lawsuit drop within the next week or so, sometime in September. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I just wanted to bring it up because it's very interesting that it's even happening at all. The amount of labor agitation in this country right now is incredible and wonderful.